The air inside the arena smelled like blood and fear. Ji-woo sat in the corner of a metal cage, his hands wrapped in dirty cloth. Around him, other prisoners waited for their turn to fight. Some were tall aliens with thick skin like armor. Others had multiple arms or glowing eyes. All of them looked scared. Ji-woo was scared too, but he didn't show it. 3 days ago, he had been a simple merchant flying his small cargo ship between planets. Then the pirates came. They killed his crew and dragged him here to Crimson Sphere, a space station where criminals gathered far from any law. Now he was property. Now he was entertainment. The guards came for him sooner than expected. 2 large aliens with gray skin grabbed his arms and pulled him from the cage. They pushed him down a dark tunnel toward bright lights and loud noise. Ji-woo's heart pounded in his chest. He had been a soldier once, years ago. He knew how to fight, but that was with weapons and training. Here, he had nothing. The tunnel opened into a massive arena. Thousands of aliens sat in the stands, screaming and waving their appendages. The floor was covered in sand stained dark with old blood. On the other side of the arena, something huge moved in the shadows. High above the crowd, in a private viewing box with glass walls, Hana watched the arena with cold eyes. She wore the dark uniform of a Valerian officer, her scaled skin gleaming under the lights. Her people were known across the galaxy as warriors and conquerors. She had been trained since childhood to lead troops and crush enemies. But tonight, she wasn't here as a soldier. She was here as a spy. Her government had sent her to investigate weapons dealers who operated from this station. To maintain her cover, she had to pretend to enjoy the fights like the other crime lords around her. It made her sick, but she showed nothing on her face. Valerians never showed weakness. Below, the announcer's voice boomed across the arena. "Tonight, we have a special treat, a human. These weak creatures think they rule the galaxy, but let's see how long this one survives." The crowd roared with laughter. Hana leaned forward slightly. She had fought alongside humans during the border wars. They were clever and stubborn, but physically weak compared to most species. This one looked young, maybe 30 cycles old. He wore torn clothing and had dark hair that hung over his eyes. He stood in the center of the arena, looking up at the crowd with no expression on his face. "And his opponent," the announcer continued, "the undefeated Kravik warrior Demolisher." The creature that emerged from the shadows made even Hana pause. It stood nearly 3 meters tall, with thick plates of natural armor covering its body. 6 arms ended in claws that could slice through metal. Its eyes glowed red in the dim light. The Kravik had won 23 fights in a row. Most opponents died within minutes. The crowd went wild. They threw trash and empty containers into the arena. Some chanted for blood. Others placed bets on how quickly the human would die. In the viewing box next to Hana, a fat merchant laughed. "I give him 30 seconds." Hana said nothing. She watched the human called Ji-woo. He wasn't panicking. Instead, he was studying his opponent, his eyes moving over the Kravik's body like he was reading a book. That was interesting. A horn blared. The fight began. The Kravik charged immediately, its massive feet shaking the ground. Ji-woo didn't run. At the last second, he dove to the side, rolling across the sand. The Kravik's claws missed him by centimeters. The crowd booed. They wanted blood, not acrobatics. The Kravik turned and swung 2 of its arms in wide arcs. Ji-woo ducked under the first, then jumped over the second. He was fast, much faster than he looked, but he couldn't dodge forever. The Kravik was too big, too strong. One hit would kill him. Hana found herself holding her breath. Why wasn't he attacking? Then she understood. He was learning. Every time the Kravik swung, Ji-woo studied how it moved, where it was slow, where it left itself open. He was using the Kravik's own aggression as a teacher. Minutes passed. The Kravik grew frustrated. It roared and charged again, using all 6 arms to create a wall of claws. There was nowhere to dodge. Jiwoo did something unexpected. He ran straight toward the Kravik. At the last instant, he slid between its legs on his knees, sand spraying around him. As he passed underneath, he punched upward with all his strength into a gap between the armor plates on the Kravik's inner thigh. The Kravik screamed. It was a weak point, and Jiwoo had found it. The creature stumbled but didn't fall. It spun around, more careful now, more angry. The crowd had gone quieter. This wasn't supposed to happen. Jiwoo circled slowly, keeping his distance. His breathing was heavy but controlled. Hana noticed he was leading the Kravik toward the arena wall. Smart. Limit its movement options. When the Kravik was close enough to the wall, Jiwoo attacked again. He grabbed a handful of sand and threw it directly into the Kravik's glowing eyes. The creature roared in pain and rage, swinging blindly. Jiwoo used the moment. He jumped onto one of the Kravik's arms, ran up its shoulder, and drove his elbow into the side of its neck where the armor was thinnest. Once, twice, 3 times. The impacts sounded like hammer strikes. The Kravik reached up to grab him, but Jiwoo was already moving. He jumped from its back, grabbed its head with both hands, and used his body weight to twist. There was a horrible cracking sound. The Kravik fell forward onto the sand and didn't move again. Silence filled the arena. Then, slowly, the crowd began to cheer. They had never seen anything like this. A human, unarmed and half the size of his opponent, had won through pure skill and determination. Jiwoo stood over the fallen Kravik, his chest heaving with exhaustion. Blood dripped from cuts on his arms and face, but he was alive. He looked up at the viewing boxes, his eyes hard and defiant. He wasn't broken. They could chain him, throw him into their games, but they couldn't break his spirit. In her private box, Hana sat very still. She had seen thousands of fights in her career. She had killed enemies herself in honorable combat. But this was different. This human had faced impossible odds with nothing but his mind and his will. No weapons, no armor, just raw human determination. Something stirred in her chest, an unfamiliar feeling, respect, certainly, but also something else, something she couldn't quite name. She watched as the guards came to drag Jiwoo back to the cages. He walked with his head high, even in chains. Hana made a decision. She pressed a button on her chair's armrest. A servant appeared immediately. "Yes, Commander." "That human fighter," she said quietly. "I want to purchase his contract, immediately." The servant bowed. "Of course, Commander. May I ask why?" Hana kept watching Jiwoo until he disappeared into the tunnels. She thought about his fighting style, his intelligence under pressure, his refusal to surrender even when death seemed certain. He might be useful, she said. But in her mind, she thought something different. She thought, remarkable. As the next fight began and the crowd cheered for fresh blood, Hana sat back in her chair and began planning. She had come here to hunt weapons dealers. But perhaps she had found something far more valuable. She had found a human who fought like her people claimed to fight, with honor and courage and an unbreakable will. She had found Jiwoo, and whether he knew it yet or not, his life was about to change forever. Jiwoo woke up in a different cell. This one was cleaner, with actual beds instead of cold metal floors. His wounds had been treated with medical gel that made his skin tingle. For a moment, he thought maybe he had died in the arena and this was some kind of afterlife. Then the door opened, and he knew he was still very much alive. The creature that entered was unlike anything he had seen before. She stood tall, maybe 2 meters, with scales that shimmered green and gold under the lights. Her eyes were yellow with vertical pupils, like a snake. But she walked upright like a human, wore a military uniform, and carried herself with absolute authority. A Valerian. Jiwoo had heard stories about them. Warriors, conquerors, not people you wanted to meet in a dark corridor. "My name is Hana," she said in perfect human language. Her voice was smooth but cold. "I have purchased your contract from the arena. You belong to me now." Jiwoo sat up slowly, every muscle in his body aching. "Belong to you?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I don't belong to anyone." Hana's eyes narrowed slightly. "You are a slave. That is your legal status here. I paid 30,000 credits for you. You will work for me until that debt is repaid, or until I release you. Those are your options. And if I refuse, then I return you to the arena and you fight until you die, which, based on statistics, will be within 3 more fights." She said it without emotion, just stating facts. "I watched you fight the Kravik. You are skilled, intelligent. You could be useful to me." Jiwoo studied her face, looking for any sign of deception. He found none. Valerians were known for their honesty, at least. They believed lying was beneath them. "Useful how?" "I am investigating a criminal network that operates from this station. They traffic in weapons, slaves, and illegal technology. I need someone who can move through places I cannot. Someone expendable." She paused. "You want your freedom. I need an assistant. Work with me. And when my mission is complete, I will give you a ship and send you home." It wasn't really a choice, and they both knew it. But at least it was better than dying in the sand for entertainment. Jiwoo nodded slowly. "Fine. But I'm not calling you master or commander or any of that." For the first time, something that might have been amusement flickered across Hana's face. "Fair enough." 2 hours later, Jiwoo found himself aboard Hana's ship, the Serpent's Grace. It was a military vessel, sleek and deadly, with weapons systems that could probably destroy a small moon. The interior was all smooth metal and glowing panels. Everything was organized and clean. Very Valerian. Hana showed him to a small cabin. "Rest tonight. Tomorrow we begin work." She turned to leave, then paused. "That was impressive what you did in the arena. I have fought many opponents. Few would have survived what you faced." "I'm full of surprises," Jiwoo said. "I hope so," Hana replied, and left him alone. Jiwoo sat on the bed and put his head in his hands. A week ago he had been free, flying his own ship, making honest trades between colonies. Now he was a slave, owned by an alien warrior, trapped in a web of crime and violence. He wanted to be angry, but mostly he just felt tired. The next 3 days passed in a blur. Hana explained her mission. She was tracking a group that sold illegal plasma weapons to anyone with credits. These weapons were banned by galactic law because they could melt through ship hulls in seconds. If they fell into the wrong hands, entire space stations could be destroyed. Hana needed to find the suppliers and shut them down permanently. Jiwoo's job was simple. Go to the lower levels of the station, talk to criminals, gather information. His human appearance helped. Most aliens underestimated humans, thought they were weak and stupid. That made them careless with their words. On the 4th day, everything went wrong. Jiwoo had arranged a meeting with a weapons dealer in an abandoned cargo bay on the station's lower ring. The dealer, an insectoid creature named Vix, was supposed to give him names and locations. But when Jiwoo arrived, he found Vix dead on the floor and 5 armed aliens waiting in the shadows. "We know you work for the Valerian," one of them said, raising a weapon. "You've been asking too many questions. Time to tie up loose ends." Jiwoo ran. He was fast, but the aliens were faster. They chased him through narrow corridors and across catwalks suspended over empty space. Plasma bolts exploded around him, melting metal and filling the air with acrid smoke. He managed to send a distress signal to Hana before they cornered him in a dead-end corridor. 5 against 1. No weapons, no escape. Jiwoo prepared to fight anyway, but then the wall behind the aliens exploded inward, and Hana appeared through the smoke like an avenging demon. She moved with frightening speed and precision. Her combat knife flashed in the dim light. 2 aliens went down before they could even aim their weapons. The third managed to fire, but Hana twisted aside, and the plasma bolt flew harmlessly past her. She closed the distance and struck him in the throat with the edge of her hand. He collapsed, gasping. The last 2 aliens focused their fire on her. Hana took cover behind a support beam, but it was melting under the sustained fire. She was pinned down, and they knew it. They advanced slowly, weapons raised, ready to finish her. Ji-woo looked at his hands. They were still wrapped in the restraints Hana had put on him, thin metal bands that connected to a control chip. She had activated them before letting him leave the ship, a precaution to make sure he came back. But Ji-woo had been working on them for days, testing their weak points. With a sharp twist and a burst of pain, he broke the left band, then the right. His hands were free. He grabbed a piece of broken metal from the floor and charged. The aliens heard him coming and turned, but Ji-woo was already among them. He struck the first one in the knee with the metal bar, feeling bones crunch. As that one fell, he threw the bar at the second alien's face. It connected with a satisfying crack. Hana didn't waste the opening. She emerged from cover and finished both aliens with quick, efficient strikes. Then she turned to Ji-woo, breathing hard, her yellow eyes wide with surprise. "You broke the restraints." "You're welcome," Ji-woo said, dropping the metal bar. His hands were bleeding again. They stared at each other for a long moment. The corridor was quiet except for the groaning of wounded aliens and the hiss of damaged ventilation systems. Hana had saved him, but he had also saved her. The balance between them had shifted. "You could have run," Hana said quietly. "You were free. You could have escaped while I was fighting." Ji-woo shrugged. "You would have died. That seemed wrong." Something changed in Hana's expression. The coldness faded, replaced by something warmer, more uncertain. She reached down and pulled the control chip from her belt. With a quick motion, she crushed it in her scaled hand. "No more restraints. You fight beside me now, not behind me. Does that mean I'm not a slave anymore? It means you have earned my respect. For a Valerian, that is worth more than freedom." She paused, then added, "But yes, you are free. If you want to leave when we return to the ship, I will give you credits and a shuttle. You can go wherever you want." Ji-woo thought about it. He could leave, find a transport back to human space, try to rebuild his life. But something made him hesitate. Maybe it was the way Hana had fought to save him. Maybe it was the mission, the chance to stop weapons dealers who hurt innocent people. Maybe it was something else, something he didn't want to name yet. "I'll stay," he said, "until the mission is done. Partners, not master and slave." Hana nodded slowly. "Partners." She extended her hand, and after a moment, Ji-woo took it. Her scales felt smooth and warm, not cold like he had expected. They left the dead-end corridor together, walking side by side. Behind them, station security would eventually find the bodies and clean up the mess. But by then, Hana and Ji-woo would be long gone, already planning their next move. As they walked, Ji-woo noticed something. Hana kept glancing at him when she thought he wasn't looking. Her expression was thoughtful, almost puzzled, like she was trying to figure out a difficult equation. He wondered what she was thinking, but didn't ask. What he didn't know was that Hana was thinking about the moment when he had charged into battle to save her. No slave would do that. No prisoner would throw away their freedom for someone who owned them. But a partner would. A friend would. Maybe even something more. She pushed the thought away. There was work to do, criminals to catch, weapons to find. Personal feelings were a distraction. But as they reached the ship and prepared for their next move, Hana couldn't quite shake the image of Ji-woo fighting bare-handed against impossible odds, refusing to abandon her even when escape was within his grasp. It was, she had to admit, quite remarkable. The serpent's grace traveled through empty space between stars, silent and invisible to most sensors. Inside, Jiwoo sat in the common area, cleaning his weapons. Hana had given him proper equipment now, a plasma pistol, a combat knife, light armor that fit his human frame. He was no longer a slave or a prisoner. He was a partner, though sometimes he still caught Hana watching him with that puzzled expression. 3 weeks had passed since the ambush on Crimson Sphere. 3 weeks of chasing leads, gathering information, and slowly mapping out the weapons network they were hunting. 3 weeks of learning to work together, to anticipate each other's moves, to trust each other in dangerous situations. And 3 weeks of conversations in the quiet hours between missions. That was when Jiwoo learned that Hana was more than just a cold warrior. "Tell me about your world," Hana said one evening. They were sitting in the observation deck, watching stars streak past as the ship traveled faster than light. "I have fought alongside humans before, but I never understood them." Jiwoo leaned back in his chair. "What do you want to know? Why do humans fight so hard? Your species is physically weak compared to most others. You have no natural armor, no claws, no venom. Yet you have conquered more worlds than almost any other species. How?" It was a question Jiwoo had heard before, usually from aliens who underestimated humans right before learning a painful lesson. But Hana asked it differently, not with contempt, but with genuine curiosity. "We're stubborn," Jiwoo said with a slight smile. "When something tells us we can't do something, we want to prove it wrong. When someone pushes us down, we get back up. It's not about being strong, it's about refusing to quit." "But why? What drives that refusal?" Jiwoo was quiet for a moment, thinking. "I think it's because we know we're fragile. We know we can die easily. So we have to make our lives count for something. We have to matter, even if we're small and weak. We fight because surrendering means admitting our lives don't matter." Hana turned to look at him, her yellow eyes reflecting the starlight. "That is a very lonely way to live." "Sometimes," Jiwoo admitted. "That's why we form bonds with others. Family, friends, comrades. We're weak alone, so we become strong together." "Like a pack?" "More than that. We choose our pack. Blood doesn't matter as much as loyalty. Trust." He met her eyes. "That's why I stayed, after you freed me. You could have left me to die in that corridor. But you came back for me. That meant something." Hana looked away, but not before Jiwoo saw something vulnerable in her expression. "I almost didn't come. My mission was more important than one human slave. That's what my training says, but something made me turn around." "I didn't understand it then. And now? Now I think I am learning what you mean by choosing your pack." The conversation hung in the air between them, heavy with implications neither was quite ready to name. After a while, Jiwoo changed the subject. "What about you? Why did you become a soldier?" Hana's expression hardened slightly. "I had no choice. My family has served the Valerian Empire for 20 generations. We are warriors. It is what we are born to do. My father commands a battle fleet. My mother was a strategic advisor to the Emperor. My sister leads an assault division. I was expected to follow the same path. But you didn't want to? It's not about wanting. It's about duty." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I believed in the Empire once. I thought we were bringing order to chaos, protecting the weak, creating peace through strength. But the more I saw, the more I questioned. We don't protect the weak. We exploit them. We don't create peace. We demand submission and call it order." Jiwoo heard the bitterness in her voice. "So you became a spy instead of a warrior?" "I became someone who could gather evidence. Someone who could document the corruption and crimes committed in the Empire's name. I thought if I could show the right people, if I could prove what was happening, things would change." She laughed, but there was no joy in it. I was naive. But you're still fighting, still trying to make things better. What else can I do? Surrender? Accept that this is how things must be? Hana shook her head. Maybe I learned something from humans after all. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars. Jiwoo thought about what she had said, a Valerian who questioned her own empire, a warrior who fought for justice instead of glory. She was more complex than he had initially thought. The next mission took them to Busan Station, a massive habitat that orbited a gas giant. The station was home to nearly 2 million beings from hundreds of species. It was also, according to Hana's intelligence, a major hub for the weapons network they were hunting. The plan was simple. They would pose as mercenaries looking to buy illegal weapons. When they met the dealers, Hana would plant tracking devices on the weapons while Jiwoo distracted them with negotiations. Then they would follow the trail back to the source. But plans rarely survived contact with reality. The meeting was held in a private docking bay deep inside the station. The dealers were cautious, paranoid. They had guards everywhere, weapons scanners at every entrance, and escape routes planned. When Jiwoo and Hana arrived, they were searched thoroughly, too thoroughly. The guard found Hana's tracking devices hidden in her armor. Well, well, the lead dealer said, a massive creature with 4 arms and tusks like a boar. Looks like we have some spies. Who sent you? The Unity? The Trade Guild? Hana stood perfectly still, her hand near her weapon, but not touching it. There's been a mistake. We're here to buy, not cause trouble. You lie poorly for a Valerian. The dealer gestured to his guards. Kill them both. Dump the bodies in the recycler. Everything happened at once. Guards raised their weapons. Hana drew her pistol and dove behind a cargo container. Jiwoo threw himself to the side as plasma bolts filled the air where he had been standing. He rolled to his feet, grabbed a metal crate, and hurled it at the nearest guard. It hit the alien in the chest and knocked him down. But there were too many of them, at least 20 guards, all armed, all positioned perfectly to cover each other. Hana's shots were accurate, but she couldn't move without exposing herself to multiple firing angles. Jiwoo had no cover at all. He ran toward a stack of cargo containers, trying to reach Hana's position. He almost made it. A plasma bolt caught him in the side, just below his ribs. The pain was incredible, like being stabbed with a red-hot knife. Jiwoo stumbled and fell, his vision going dark at the edges. He heard Hana scream his name, the first time he had heard real emotion in her voice. Then everything became chaos. Hana abandoned her cover and charged into the open, firing with both hands. She moved like a force of nature, fast and deadly and completely fearless. Guards fell before her, but there were always more. She was going to get herself killed, trying to reach him. Jiwoo tried to call out, to tell her to run and save herself, but his lungs wouldn't work properly. He tasted blood in his mouth. This was it. This was how he died. Not in a clean fight like the arena, but bleeding out on a dirty floor while Hana died trying to save him. But Hana reached him. She grabbed his arm and dragged him behind cover, her armor scorched from multiple hits. Her face was twisted with something Jiwoo had never seen there before. Fear. She was afraid for him. "Stay with me," she said, pressing her hand against his wound. Her scales felt cool against his burning skin. "Don't you dare die. That's an order." Jiwoo tried to smile. "Thought I wasn't taking orders anymore. Shut up and let me work." She pulled out a medical injector and stabbed it into his neck. Cold spread through his body, dulling the pain. "I'm getting you out of here. Too many of them. You'll never make it. Watch me." Hana stood up, and Jiwoo watched through fading consciousness as she became something terrible and beautiful. She fought like a demon from old Earth stories, her movements precise and brutal. She used her environment, dropping cargo containers on guards, creating explosions with shot fuel cells, turning the dealer's own tactics against them. and all the while, she kept herself between Ji-woo and any harm. Finally, the shooting stopped. The docking bay was filled with smoke and sparks from damaged equipment. Bodies lay everywhere. Hana knelt beside Ji-woo again, checking his wound. Her hands were shaking slightly. "You're going to be okay," she said. "The medicine will keep you alive until we reach the ship. Just hold on." Ji-woo grabbed her hand weakly. "Why did you do that? Risk everything for me?" Hana looked at him, and in her eyes he saw the answer before she spoke. "Because you are my partner. Because you chose to stay when you could have left. Because—" She stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. "Because when I thought you were dying, I realized I couldn't imagine continuing this mission without you." She lifted him carefully, carrying him like he weighed nothing. As they escaped from the station, alarms blaring behind them, Ji-woo held on to consciousness just barely, but he heard Hana whisper something as she ran, so quiet he almost missed it. "I wish you were mine, but you deserve to go home." Then the darkness took him, and he remembered nothing more until he woke up in the medical bay, alive and wondering if he had imagined those words, or if they were real. Ji-woo spent 4 days in the medical bay. The ship's automated systems repaired the damage to his side slowly but efficiently. Hana visited him every day, bringing him food and sitting quietly while he recovered. She never mentioned what she had whispered at the station. Neither did he. But something between them had changed. The air felt heavier when they were together, charged with unspoken words. On the 5th day, Ji-woo was cleared to return to duty. His side still ached, but he could move without pain. When he entered the common area, he found Hana waiting for him with training gear laid out on the floor. "What's this?" he asked. "You almost died because you couldn't defend yourself properly." Hana's tone was matter-of-fact, but her eyes showed concern. "That won't happen again. I'm going to teach you how a Valerian fights." "I know how to fight." "You know how a human fights. That's not enough when facing opponents twice your size with natural weapons." She tossed him a practice blade. "Show me your stance." For the next 3 hours, they trained. Hana was patient but demanding, correcting his form, teaching him how to use an opponent's strength against them, showing him pressure points on different alien species that could disable them quickly. Ji-woo learned fast, his body remembering old military training even as it adapted to new techniques. But the training sessions became more than just combat lessons. They became a conversation without words, a dance of trust and closeness. When Hana adjusted his stance, her hands lingering on his shoulders, Ji-woo felt his breath catch. When he managed to land a hit during sparring, her rare smile made something warm bloom in his chest. "You learn quickly," Hana said after he successfully countered her attack. They were both breathing hard, sweat making his shirt stick to his back. "Most humans take weeks to master what you learned in hours." "I had a good teacher," Ji-woo replied. "Now it's my turn. I'll teach you how humans fight." Hana tilted her head, curious. "What can humans teach me that I don't already know?" "Improvisation." "Valerians fight with precision and planning. Humans fight with whatever we have, wherever we are. Let me show you." Ji-woo taught her the dirty tricks humans used when outmatched. How to throw dirt in an opponent's eyes. How to use the environment as a weapon. How to make noise and confusion work in your favor. Hana was skeptical at first, such tactics seeming beneath a warrior's dignity. But she learned because she was smart enough to know that survival mattered more than pride. Their training became a daily ritual, morning combat practice, afternoon strategy discussions, evening equipment maintenance. They fell into a rhythm that felt natural, comfortable. Ji-woo found himself looking forward to each session, not just for the training but for the company. Hana's cold exterior was melting, revealing someone warmer underneath. Someone who laughed at his bad jokes about alien food. Someone who shared stories from her childhood that showed vulnerability and doubt. The next mission came 2 weeks later. Intelligence suggested a major weapons shipment was being prepared on a frontier moon called Dajon 7. The moon was barely habitable, covered mostly in ice and rock, with a small mining colony as its only settlement. Perfect for illegal operations. The plan required them to infiltrate a warehouse complex on the moon's surface and plant surveillance devices. They would go in during the night cycle when most workers were sleeping. Simple, quick, low risk. But things went wrong immediately. The warehouse was more heavily guarded than expected, and the guards had better equipment. Thermal scanners, motion sensors, automated turrets. Someone had upgraded security recently. Ji-woo and Hana were separated when alarms triggered, forced to flee in different directions through the maze-like complex. Ji-woo found himself trapped in a storage area, surrounded by crates of illegal weapons. He could hear guards searching for him, their voices getting closer. His communicator with Hana was damaged, so he couldn't call for help. He was alone. Back in the security center, Hana had managed to access the surveillance system. She watched the monitors frantically, searching for Ji-woo. When she found him, her blood went cold. 20 guards were converging on his position. He had nowhere to run. She watched as the guards entered the storage area. Ji-woo didn't try to hide. Instead, he stepped out into the open, hands raised. The guards laughed, pointing their weapons at him. Easy target. Helpless human. They had no idea what was coming. Ji-woo's hands dropped, and suddenly he was moving. He kicked a crate and it slid across the floor into the nearest guard's legs. While that guard fell, Ji-woo grabbed a metal pipe from a nearby rack and threw it like a spear at another guard's face. Then he was among them, using everything Hana had taught him and everything he already knew. Hana watched in amazement. Ji-woo fought like he had in the arena, but better now. More refined. He used the guards' own weapons against them, disarming one and using his rifle to knock down 2 others. When they tried to surround him, he climbed onto the crates, gaining height advantage. When they fired at him, he used the crates as cover, moving constantly, never letting them pin him down. But what struck Hana most wasn't his fighting skill. It was his determination. Every time a guard knocked him down, he got back up. Every time he seemed cornered, he found a way out. His face was set with absolute focus. No fear, no hesitation. Just pure human stubbornness, refusing to accept defeat. Then something happened that made Hana's chest tighten. One of the guards was using a captured alien prisoner as a shield, a small creature with large eyes and trembling limbs. The guard pointed his weapon at the prisoner's head. "Surrender or I kill it." Ji-woo should have kept fighting. The prisoner wasn't his problem. Saving it endangered the mission. Any logical warrior would have ignored the threat and focused on survival. But Ji-woo stopped. He lowered his improvised weapon and raised his hands. "Let them go," he said. "Take me instead." The guard laughed. "You're not in position to negotiate, human." "No," Ji-woo agreed. "But you are. Let the prisoner go, and I'll tell you where my partner is. A Valerian officer, worth more than both of us combined." It was a lie, of course. Ji-woo would never betray Hana, but the guard didn't know that. He considered for a moment, then pushed the prisoner away. "Talk." Hana didn't wait to see what happened next. She burst from the security center and ran toward the storage area. Her heart pounded in a way that had nothing to do with physical exertion. Ji-woo had sacrificed himself for a stranger. He had chosen compassion over survival. It was foolish, illogical, completely human, and it made something inside her break open. She reached the storage area just as the guards were binding Ji-woo's hands. They saw her coming and opened fire, but Hana was beyond caring about caution. She fought with a fury she had never felt before, cutting through the guards like they were nothing. When the last one fell, she ran to Ji-woo and cut his bonds with her knife. That was stupid, she said, her voice rough with emotion. You could have died. Jiwoo rubbed his wrists where the restraints had been. Couldn't let them hurt that prisoner. Not when I could stop it. Why? You didn't know them. They meant nothing to you. They didn't have to mean something to me. They were scared and helpless, and I could help. That's enough. Hana stared at him, something shifting in her chest. This was what she had been searching for in her people and failing to find. Not just strength or courage, but compassion. The will to fight, not just for victory or duty, but for those who couldn't fight for themselves. Your species is insane, she said quietly. Probably, Jiwoo agreed with a small smile. Is that a problem? Instead of answering, Hana did something she had never done before. She reached out and touched his face gently, her scaled fingers soft against his skin. No, she said. It's remarkable. They stood there for a long moment, the warehouse silent around them except for the distant sound of alarms. The prisoner Jiwoo had saved watched from behind a crate, confused, but safe. The mission was compromised, their cover blown. They would have to flee the moon immediately. But none of that seemed to matter, because in that moment, Hana understood something that had been growing in her heart for weeks. She didn't just respect Jiwoo. She didn't just admire his fighting spirit or appreciate his partnership. She had feelings for him that went far deeper and more complicated. When she had seen him risk everything for a stranger, when she had watched him refuse to give up no matter how badly he was hurt, she had realized the truth. This human, this supposedly weak and fragile creature, was stronger than any Valerian she had ever known, not in body, but in spirit, in the things that really mattered. They escaped the moon together, flying through ice storms and dodging security patrols. Back on the Serpent's Grace, as they plotted their next move, Hana found herself watching Jiwoo more openly. She no longer tried to hide it. And Jiwoo, she noticed, was watching her too. Neither of them spoke about what had passed between them in the warehouse. But the knowledge hung in the air, warm and heavy and full of possibility. Something was building between them, something that defied the boundaries of species and duty and all the logical reasons why it shouldn't exist. Something that felt, for the first time in Hana's carefully controlled life, like it might be worth fighting for. The evidence was overwhelming. After months of investigation, Hana and Jiwoo had finally traced the weapons network to its source, and what they found was worse than either of them had imagined. The illegal weapons weren't being made by independent criminals. They were being manufactured by a secret division within the Valerian military itself. High-ranking officers were selling banned technology to anyone who would pay, using the profits to fund private armies. The operation was massive, spanning dozens of worlds, involving thousands of beings. And at the center of it all was a Valerian general named Taiyang, a war hero with political ambitions and no conscience. Hana sat in her quarters, staring at the data on her terminal screen. Names, dates, transactions, all carefully documented, proof of treason and corruption at the highest levels of her government. She had dreamed of finding evidence like this. Now that she had it, she felt only cold dread. If we release this information, it will cause chaos in the Empire, she said quietly. Jiwoo sat across from her, listening. Military leaders will be arrested. Political alliances will collapse. There might even be civil war. And if we don't release it? Jiwoo asked. How many more people die because of these weapons? Thousands. Maybe millions. Hana closed her eyes. There is no good choice here. Jiwoo leaned forward. Yes, there is. We expose them. We show the galaxy what's really happening. Maybe it causes chaos, but at least it's honest chaos. At least people will know the truth. You make it sound simple. It is simple, not easy, but simple. He paused. You said you became a spy to gather evidence and change things. Well, here's your evidence. Now you have to decide if you really meant it." Hana looked at him, this human who had somehow become the most important person in her life. He made everything seem clearer, like his straightforward human perspective cut through Valerian complexity and reached the heart of things. He was right. She knew he was right. "If I do this, I become a traitor to my own species," she said. "My family will be shamed. My sister serves the Emperor directly. This will destroy her career, maybe her life." Jiwoo reached across and took her hand. His fingers were smaller than hers, softer, but his grip was strong. "I know what I'm asking you to give up, but you've already chosen, haven't you? The moment you showed me this evidence instead of burying it. You just need to admit it." Hana stared at their joined hands. A Valerian and a human, holding on to each other while the universe fell apart around them. It should have seemed strange. Instead, it felt like the only real thing in her life. "All right," she said. "We'll do it. We'll expose everything." They spent the next 2 days preparing. Hana copied all the evidence onto encrypted storage devices. They identified journalists, politicians, and military reformers who might actually use the information to create change rather than bury it. They planned escape routes and contingency plans, knowing that once they released the data, they would be hunted by some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. On the 3rd day, they transmitted everything to their chosen recipients. Then, they waited. The response was faster than expected. Within hours, news networks across the galaxy were reporting on the scandal. The Valerian government denied everything, calling the evidence fabricated. But too many people had seen it now. The truth was out, and it couldn't be put back. And then the Valerian military came for them. Hana's ship sensors detected the battle fleet long before it arrived. 15 warships, led by a command carrier, standard protocol for hunting down traitors. They had hours, maybe less, before the fleet caught up to them. "We should run," Jiwoo said, checking weapons in the armory. "Head for neutral space. Find somewhere they can't follow." "They'll follow us anywhere," Hana replied. She was plotting courses on the navigation computer, her fingers moving quickly across the controls. "The Empire doesn't forgive treason. They'll chase us until we're dead or captured." "So what do we do?" Hana pulled up a star chart. "There's an asteroid field 3 hours from here. Thick enough to hide in, dangerous enough that most ships won't follow. If we can reach it, we might be able to lose them long enough to escape to the frontier territories." It was a desperate plan, but they had run out of safe options. The Serpent's Grace was fast, but it couldn't outrun an entire battle fleet forever. Their only hope was to disappear before the net closed completely. They almost made it. The fleet caught up to them 30 minutes from the asteroid field. Plasma cannons opened fire, filling the space around their ship with deadly energy. Hana flew like a demon, weaving between shots, using every trick she knew to stay ahead of the pursuing warships. But there were too many of them, and the Serpent's Grace was taking hits. "Shields at 40%, Jiwoo called out from the weapons station. He was firing back, his shots precise and careful, but their small ship's weapons couldn't seriously damage military cruisers. "We're not going to make it." "Yes, we are." Hana's voice was steel and determination. "Hold on." She pushed the engines beyond their safe limits, red warnings flashing across every screen. The ship shuddered and screamed in protest, but it accelerated. The asteroid field appeared ahead, a dark cloud of tumbling rock that could tear a ship apart if the pilot wasn't skilled and lucky. Hana was both. She plunged into the asteroids at full speed, banking and rolling to avoid collisions by mere meters. Behind them, most of the fleet held back, unwilling to risk their valuable warships in such a dangerous environment. But 3 ships followed, smaller pursuit craft piloted by hunters who wanted the glory of capturing the traitor. The chase through the asteroids was nightmarish. Rocks the size of buildings spun through space. Smaller debris pelted their hull like bullets. One wrong move meant instant death. But Hana never hesitated, her hands steady on the controls, her eyes focused and calm. Jiwoo watched her with amazement and something deeper. She was magnificent in her element, a warrior pilot who refused to be beaten. But even Hana's skill had limits. A lucky shot from one of the pursuing ships hit their main engine. The Serpent's Grace lurched, alarms screaming. They were still flying, but slower now, damaged. The pursuit ships closed in for the kill. "Brace yourself," Hana said. She turned the ship hard, bringing it around to face their pursuers. "We're going to have to fight." "Against 3 military ships?" Jiwoo checked his weapons station. "We don't have enough firepower." "Then we improvise, like you taught me." Hana flew straight at the nearest pursuit ship, playing a deadly game of chicken. At the last second, she rolled aside, letting their opponent fly past. Jiwoo fired everything they had at the ship's exposed engine section as it passed. His shots found their target. The pursuit ship exploded in a brief star of fire and debris. 2 ships left. But now the Serpent's Grace was venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. More warning lights flashed. They had minutes before critical systems failed completely. Then something unexpected happened. One of the 2 remaining pursuit ships suddenly broke off its attack and moved to block the other ship's firing solution. A voice came over their communication channel, female and familiar. "Sister, stop running. You know this ends only one way." Hana's hands tightened on the controls. "Mirai." Jiwoo looked at her sharply. Mirai, Hana's sister, the commander who served the Emperor directly, now here, leading the hunt for her own family member. "Land your ship," Mirai continued. Her voice was calm, emotionless. "Come aboard my vessel peacefully. I promise you'll be treated fairly. There will be a trial. You'll have a chance to defend your actions." "A trial?" Hana laughed bitterly. "Followed by execution. You know what they do to traitors, Mirai. I won't die in chains for telling the truth." "Then you'll die here, in the cold. Is that better?" There was something in Mirai's voice now, a crack in the professional tone. "Please, Hana. You're my sister. Don't make me kill you." Hana closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were hard and resolved. "I'm sorry, sister, but I can't come back. Not after what I've learned. Not after what I've become." She looked at Jiwoo. In that glance, whole conversations passed between them. Apologies for getting him involved. Gratitude for standing by her. Something else, something warm and fierce that neither had put into words yet. "Go," she said quietly to him. "There's an escape pod in the aft section. Take it and run. They won't chase you. It's me they want." "No." Jiwoo's answer was immediate and absolute. "We're partners, remember? Partners don't abandon each other." "Jiwoo, please. You have a chance to survive, to go home. Don't throw that away for me. I'm exactly where I choose to be." He reached over and took her hand, squeezing it gently. "Besides, you said it yourself. Humans don't know when to quit. It's our best and worst quality." Despite everything, Hana almost smiled. This impossible human, who had become her partner, her friend, and somewhere along the way, something even more important. He refused to leave her, even facing certain death. It was foolish and brave and completely Jiwoo. "All right," she said. "Then we fight together, until the end." Mirai's voice came over the channel again, harder now. "Hana, your human companion will also be executed for aiding a traitor. Send him away while you still can. Don't let him die for your choices." Hana looked at Jiwoo, giving him one more chance to reconsider. He just shook his head and prepared the weapons for combat. She felt something warm and painful in her chest, love and grief mixing together. Before she could respond to her sister, Jiwoo leaned forward and activated the communication channel himself. "This is Jiwoo, speaking for the human aboard this ship. I'm not here as a prisoner or a servant. I'm here by choice. Hana isn't making me do anything. I'm choosing to stand with her because she's worth standing with. Because what she exposed was worth exposing. And because sometimes doing the right thing is more important than surviving. Silence on the other end. Then Mirai spoke again, and her voice was different, quieter, thoughtful. The human speaks for himself. Interesting. Another pause. Stand by. The pursuit ships held their position but didn't fire. Minutes passed like hours. Jiwoo and Hana waited, hands still joined, preparing for whatever came next. Their ship continued to drift deeper into the asteroid field, systems failing one by one. If Mirai was going to attack, now would be the time. Instead, Mirai's voice returned. I've reviewed the evidence you transmitted, all of it, and I've spoken with my command staff. A long silence. I need to think about what I've seen. This conversation isn't over, sister, but I'm recalling my ships, for now. What? Hana couldn't believe what she was hearing. You heard me. I'm giving you time. Maybe to run. Maybe to turn yourself in voluntarily. I don't know yet. Mirai's voice grew softer. I remember when we were children, you always asked too many questions. Always wanted to know why things were the way they were. I never understood that about you. But maybe... She trailed off. Maybe I should have asked more questions too. The Serpent's Grace limped through space on emergency power. Hana and Jiwoo had escaped the asteroid field and were hiding in an abandoned mining station on the frontier, making repairs. The station had no gravity and minimal atmosphere, but it was shelter while they figured out their next move. 3 days after their encounter with Mirai, a single ship approached the station. It wasn't a warship this time, just a small diplomatic shuttle. Hana recognized the design as Mirai's personal transport. Her heart raced as she watched it dock. This could be a trap, Jiwoo said, checking his weapon. If Mirai wanted us dead, we'd be dead already. She had us. Hana took a deep breath. I need to hear what she has to say. They met Mirai in the docking bay. Hana's sister looked different than Jiwoo expected. She was taller than Hana, with darker scales and more scars, but her eyes held the same intelligence. Those eyes studied Jiwoo carefully when she entered. So this is the human who convinced you to betray everything our family stands for, Mirai said. I convinced myself, Hana replied coldly. Jiwoo just helped me see clearly. Did he? Mirai walked slowly around them, her movements precise and controlled. I spent the last 3 days reviewing your evidence. Every file, every transaction, every piece of proof. Do you know what I found? The truth. Yes, the truth. Mirai stopped walking and faced them directly. The truth that our empire, the civilization I've served my entire life, is rotten at its core. The truth that our military leadership profits from illegal weapons while sending soldiers to die in pointless wars. The truth that everything I believed was a lie. Hana's expression softened slightly. Then you understand why I had to expose it. Understand? Mirai's voice rose. I understand that you've destroyed our family's honor. I understand that father will never speak to you again. I understand that mother will spend the rest of her life in shame because her daughter is a traitor. She paused, breathing hard. But I also understand that you were right to do it. The words hung in the air like a bomb. Jiwoo saw Hana's eyes widen with surprise. What? Hana whispered. Mirai looked away. I brought your evidence to certain people, reformers within the military who have been trying to root out corruption for years. They were grateful, very grateful. General Taiyang and his collaborators will face justice. Real justice, not the pretend trials we usually have. She turned back to Hana. You did what none of us had the courage to do. You put truth above loyalty. Then why chase us? Why the fleet? Because I had my orders. Because I'm a soldier and soldiers follow orders. Mirai's voice broke slightly. Because I was afraid to do what you did. Afraid to question. Afraid to stand alone against the system. Jiwoo spoke up for the first time. But you did question. In the end, you looked at the evidence and made your own choice. Mirai looked at him with an expression that might have been respect. The human has wisdom. I see why you keep him close, sister. He's not mine to keep, Hana said quietly. He's his own person. He stays by choice. Does he? Mirai stepped closer to Jiwoo, studying his face. Tell me, human, why do you stay with my sister? She's a traitor to her own kind. Being seen with her marks you as an enemy of the Valerian Empire. You could leave, find safety in human space. Why stay? Jiwoo met her gaze steadily. Because she's worth staying for. Because what she's fighting for matters. And because... He glanced at Hana. Because I care about her. Mirai's expression shifted, something like understanding crossing her face. She turned to Hana. Is that how you feel as well? Hana's scales flushed slightly darker, a Valerian sign of emotion. I don't see how my feelings are relevant to this situation. They're extremely relevant. Mirai moved back, giving them space. I need to understand what happened to you, how you changed so much. So I'm asking directly, do you have feelings for this human? The question hung in the recycled air of the docking bay. Jiwoo watched Hana, waiting for her answer. They had danced around this topic for months, never quite saying what was obvious to anyone watching them together. Hana was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice soft but clear. Yes, I have feelings for him. That's not possible, Mirai said, but her tone was more curious than judgmental. Valerians don't form bonds with other species. It's not in our nature. We conquer, we rule, but we don't connect. Not like that. I thought so too, Hana agreed. But then I watched him fight in the arena. Bare-handed, outmatched, facing certain death. And he refused to give up. He refused to accept defeat. I had never seen anything like it. She looked at Jiwoo, her yellow eyes soft. I've been trained my whole life to recognize strength, but Jiwoo showed me a different kind of strength. Not the strength to dominate others, but the strength to remain yourself no matter what happens, to choose compassion even when it's dangerous, to stand up for what's right even when you're alone. And you fell in love with that strength, Mirai said quietly. Hana hesitated, then nodded. Yes. I fell in love with him, with who he is, with what he represents, everything our empire has forgotten or never knew. She turned to Mirai. When I saw him fight that first time, I whispered to myself, remarkable. But what I really meant, what I was too afraid to admit was, I wish he were mine. I wished I could keep him close, protect him, learn from him. Jiwoo stepped closer to Hana. You never said any of this. I was afraid of what it meant, afraid of how impossible it seemed. Hana reached out and took his hand. But Mirai asked, and I'm tired of lying, even to myself, especially to myself. Mirai watched their joined hands with fascination. This is unprecedented. A Valerian officer and a human merchant, caring for each other across every boundary that should separate them. Father would call it weakness. Mother would call it madness. What do you call it? Hana asked. Mirai was quiet for a long time, thinking. Finally, she spoke. I call it brave. And maybe the bravest thing you've done isn't exposing corruption. It's admitting you love someone your entire culture says you shouldn't. She straightened her uniform. I came here to warn you. The reformers are grateful for your evidence, but they can't protect you openly. Not yet. The Emperor is furious. He's put a bounty on both your heads. Every hunter and mercenary in the galaxy will be looking for you. So we keep running, Jiwoo said. No. Mirai pulled out a data chip and handed it to Hana. You disappear. I've arranged new identities for both of you. Credits in untraceable accounts. Coordinates for safe houses on frontier worlds where the Empire's reach is weak. You can't be Hana the Valerian officer anymore, and Ji-Woo can't go back to his old life either, but you can survive, together. Hana took the chip, her fingers trembling slightly. You're helping us, after everything. You're my sister, and you were right, even though being right cost you everything. Mirai stepped closer and pulled Hana into an embrace. It was brief, but genuine. When she pulled back, her eyes were shining with unshed tears. I can't follow you. I have my own duty, my own path. But I can give you a chance. Don't waste it. She turned to Ji-Woo and, surprisingly, extended her hand in the human gesture of respect. Take care of her, human. She's more precious than she knows. Ji-Woo shook her hand firmly. I will. You have my word. Mirai nodded once, then turned and walked back to her shuttle. She paused at the airlock. Hana, one more thing. I reviewed the security footage from that night on Busan Station, when Ji-Woo was wounded and you carried him back to the ship. I heard what you whispered. Hana's scales darkened again. You shouldn't have been watching that. I'm a commander. I watch everything. Mirai's voice was gentle. You said I wish he were mine, but he deserves to go home. You were wrong about one thing. He doesn't need to go home. He is home. Wherever you are, that's his home now. The way wherever he is has become your home. Then she was gone, her shuttle departing silently into the darkness of space. Hana and Ji-Woo stood in the docking bay, holding hands and processing everything that had just happened. She heard that? Ji-Woo asked quietly. What you said at the station? Hana nodded, not looking at him. I thought you were dying. I wasn't thinking clearly. I just said what I felt. That you wished I was yours? Yes. Hana finally met his eyes. I did wish that. I still do. But you're not mine. You're not anyone's. You're free to make your own choices. Ji-Woo was quiet for a moment. Then he said, What if I choose you? Hana's breath caught. What? You said I could choose. So I choose to stay with you. Not as your property or your assistant or your partner. As something more. He brought their joined hands up between them. As whatever this is between us. Whatever we're willing to call it. That's impossible. The galaxy won't accept it. Both our peoples will reject us. Let them. Ji-Woo's voice was firm. I didn't survive the arena, escape slavers, and get shot at by half the Valerian military just to care what other people think. You showed me that doing the right thing matters more than being safe. Well, this feels right. Us. Together. Hana felt something break inside her, a wall she had built around her heart since childhood. Valerians didn't cry, but her eyes were wet as she pulled Ji-Woo close. He wrapped his arms around her, and for the first time in her life, Hana felt truly safe. I wish you were mine, she whispered against his shoulder. Ji-Woo held her tighter. I am yours, and you're mine, if we want to be. They stood like that for a long time, two beings from different worlds who had found in each other something neither knew they needed. Outside, the galaxy was vast and dangerous and full of people who would hunt them. But inside this moment, they had each other. And for now, that was enough. When they finally separated, Hana wiped her eyes and checked the data chip Mirai had given them. There are coordinates here for a colony on the edge of explored space, a place called New Jejudo. Mostly human settlers, some aliens seeking refuge. No imperial presence. Sounds perfect. Ji-Woo smiled. We can start over there, be whoever we want to be. Together? Always together. They prepared the Serpent's Grace for departure, working side by side as they had for months. But now everything felt different, lighter, like a weight had been lifted. They had admitted what they felt. They had chosen each other despite every reason not to. And whatever came next, they would face it as they faced everything else, as partners, as friends, as something deeper that didn't need a name to be real. 6 months had passed since Hana and Jiwoo fled into the frontier territories. 6 months of running, hiding, and slowly building a new life, far from the empires and governments that wanted them dead. They had settled on New Jeju-do, just as Mirei's data chip suggested, and what they found there changed everything. New Jeju-do was a small colony built on a rocky moon that orbited a blue gas giant. About 10,000 beings lived there, mostly refugees and outcasts from a dozen different species. Humans worked alongside insectoids, Valerians who had abandoned the Empire, crystalline beings who communicated through light, and dozens of others. It was chaotic and beautiful and completely unlike anywhere Hana had ever been. Here, no one cared that she was Valerian or that Jiwoo was human. No one asked why they lived together or looked at them strangely when they walked hand in hand through the market. Here, they were just Hana and Jiwoo, two people trying to survive like everyone else. But surviving wasn't enough for them. Within weeks of arriving, they had started helping others. A transport full of escaped slaves needed rescue from pirates. A settlement was being threatened by raiders demanding protection money. An alien child had been kidnapped by traffickers. Everywhere they looked, they saw people who needed help and no one willing to provide it. So they became that help. Their reputation grew quickly. The human and the Valerian, some called them. Others used different names. The unlikely pair, the frontier guardians, the traitor, and the merchant. But most people just called them by their names, said with respect and gratitude. They weren't alone in their work. They had assembled a small crew of like-minded individuals. A young pilot named Yoonji who could fly through asteroid fields blindfolded. A mechanic called Minho who could fix anything with spare parts and determination. A former soldier named Yuna who had left her army when she saw what they were really fighting for. Together, they operated from the Serpent's Grace, taking jobs that paid little but mattered much. On a cool evening, standard time, Hana and Jiwoo sat on a cliff overlooking the colony. The blue gas giant dominated the sky, its clouds swirling in endless patterns. They had just returned from a mission rescuing a group of miners trapped in a collapsed tunnel. Everyone had survived, though it had been close. "We're getting a reputation," Jiwoo said, stretching his tired muscles. "That merchant today said people as far as 3 systems away know about us." "Is that good or bad?" Hana asked. She was cleaning her weapons, a ritual she performed after every mission. "Both, probably. More people will come to us for help, but more people will also come to collect the bounty on our heads." "Let them come." Hana's voice was confident. "We've survived this long. We'll survive whatever comes next." Jiwoo looked at her, this warrior who had given up everything for the truth. Her scales still gleamed in the reflected light of the gas giant, but she carried herself differently now. Less rigid, more relaxed. She smiled more often. She was happy, he realized, maybe for the first time in her life. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Leaving your old life, your family, your career?" Hana set down her weapons and looked out at the colony below. Lights were beginning to glow as evening fell. "Sometimes I think about what I gave up. The power, the respect, the certainty of knowing my place in the universe. But then I think about what I gained." She turned to him. "I gained the freedom to choose my own path. I gained friends who value me for who I am, not what species I belong to. And I gained you." Jiwoo reached over and took her hand. It was an easy gesture now, natural and comfortable. "I never thought I'd end up here. When those slavers captured me, I thought my life was over." Then you bought me from the arena, and I thought I had just changed one prison for another. And now? Now I can't imagine being anywhere else, doing anything else, with anyone else. He squeezed her hand gently. You saved me in more ways than just buying my freedom. You gave me a reason to fight again, a purpose beyond just surviving. Hana was quiet for a moment, then said, I need to tell you something I never said properly. Ji-woo waited. Hana's emotional honesty had grown over the months, but she still struggled sometimes with putting feelings into words. It was the Valerian way, suppressing emotion in favor of logic and duty. That night in the arena when I first saw you fight, Hana began slowly, I watched you face an opponent that should have killed you in seconds. You had no weapons, no armor, no advantages. Just your mind and your will, and you refused to surrender. You studied your enemy, found its weakness, and won through pure determination. She looked at him. In that moment, I whispered, remarkable to myself. But what I really meant was something else. I know, Ji-woo said gently. Mirai told us. You said you wished I was yours. Yes, but I need you to understand what that meant. Hana turned to face him fully, her yellow eyes intense. I wasn't just admiring your fighting skill. I was seeing something my people had forgotten or never understood. You fought not because you wanted to dominate or prove your strength. You fought because you refused to let circumstances break you. That's human nature, isn't it? Facing impossible odds and trying anyway? I guess so, Ji-woo said. We don't always win, but we keep trying. That's what I saw in you, that indomitable spirit, and I realized that's what I had been searching for my entire life. Not just strength, but the reason behind the strength, the purpose that makes fighting worthwhile. Hana took his other hand, holding both now. When I said I wished you were mine, I meant I wished I could learn from you, be changed by you, become someone better by being near you. And did you? Ji-woo asked quietly. Become someone better? Hana smiled, that rare, beautiful expression that transformed her face. I became myself, the person I was always supposed to be but was too afraid to let out. You didn't change me, Ji-woo. You just helped me see who I already was underneath all the training and duty and expectations. Ji-woo felt emotion welling up in his chest. This warrior, this proud Valerian who had been taught never to show weakness, was being completely vulnerable with him. I felt the same way. When you freed me, when you fought beside me, when you chose to expose corruption even though it cost you everything, you showed me that doing the right thing is possible, even in an unfair universe. You gave me hope. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, hands joined, watching the sky change colors as new Jejudo rotated. Then Hana spoke again. My sister sent me a message yesterday, through a secure channel. Ji-woo sat up straighter. What did she say? The reformers are making progress. General Taiyang is on trial. 3 other high-ranking officers have been arrested. The weapons network is being dismantled piece by piece. Hana paused. She said the bounty on us still stands officially, but quietly, many in the military consider us heroes. They can't say it publicly, but they know what we did was necessary. Does that mean we can go back? No, not yet. Maybe never. Hana didn't sound sad about it. The Emperor won't forgive us in his lifetime, and there are still many who see us as traitors. But Mirai says she's working on it, building support, changing minds slowly. How do you feel about that? Ji-woo asked. The possibility of going back someday? Hana looked around at the colony below, the mismatched buildings and jury-rigged power systems, and the beings of 100 species living together in imperfect harmony. This is my home now, our home. These people need us. They trust us. I don't know if I want to go back to a place where duty matters more than compassion, where strength is measured in dominance rather than character. Good, Jiwoo said, because I was going to have a hard time leaving if you wanted to. They both laughed, the sound carrying across the empty cliffs. Then Jiwoo's communicator chimed. He checked it and frowned. We've got an incoming message, emergency frequency. Hana was instantly alert, her military training taking over. Put it through. A voice came through the communicator, young and scared. This is the transport ship Morning Hope. We're carrying 300 refugees, mostly families with children. We're under attack by slavers. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. We have no weapons and our engines are damaged. Please. The message cut off with the sound of weapons fire and screaming. Hana and Jiwoo looked at each other. They were tired from the tunnel rescue. Their ship needed maintenance. They had been planning a quiet evening, maybe dinner at that restaurant Yoonji recommended. A normal night for normal people. But they weren't normal people. And there were 300 beings who needed help right now. Jiwoo stood up and held out his hand to Hana. Ready? Hana took his hand and pulled herself up. Always. They ran back to where the Serpent's Grace was docked. Yoonji was already warming up the engines, having heard the same distress call. Minho was checking weapons systems. Yuna was putting on her armor. Everyone knew what they were doing without needing orders. This was who they were now. This was what they did. As Hana settled into the pilot's seat and Jiwoo took weapons control, she felt a fierce joy burning in her chest. This was right. This was where she belonged. Not in some imperial command center giving orders that hurt innocent people. Here, in a battered ship with a crew of misfits, racing to save strangers who had nowhere else to turn. Coordinates locked, Yoonji called from navigation. 30 minutes at maximum speed. Then we go maximum speed, Hana said, her hands flying over the controls. The Serpent's Grace lifted off smoothly and shot toward the stars. Jiwoo checked his weapons, making sure everything was loaded and ready. He caught Hana glancing at him and smiled. Just like old times. Better than old times, Hana corrected, because this time we're not running from something. We're running toward something. Saving people? That. And also toward the life we chose. The life where we get to be who we really are. The ship punched through the atmosphere and into open space. Ahead, sensors showed the refugee transport surrounded by 3 slaver vessels. The Morning Hope was damaged, but still broadcasting distress signals. They had maybe minutes before it was boarded. What's the plan? Yuna asked from the rear compartment. Hana's eyes narrowed, calculating angles and strategies. We go in fast and loud. Make them think we're a military vessel. Jiwoo, target their engines and weapons. Don't worry about shields. I want them scared and crippled, not destroyed. Why not destroyed? Minho asked. Because we're better than that, Jiwoo answered, understanding Hana's thinking. We stop the threat, but we don't kill unless we have to. Exactly, Hana confirmed. We're not executioners. We're guardians. The battle was short and fierce. Hana flew like she was born to it, weaving between the slaver ships and giving Jiwoo perfect firing solutions. His shots were precise, disabling engines and weapon systems without destroying the ships completely. The slavers, realizing they were outmatched, broke off and fled on emergency power. The Morning Hope was safe. They docked with the refugee transport and helped repair their engines. Families thanked them with tears in their eyes. Children looked at Jiwoo with wonder, having never seen a human before. One small alien child, no bigger than Jiwoo's hand, asked if he was a hero. No, Jiwoo said gently, just someone who tries to help. That's what a hero is, the child replied with the wisdom only children seem to have. Later, as they escorted the Morning Hope to safety and returned to New Jeju-do, Jiwoo thought about those words. Maybe they were heroes, not the kind from stories, perfect and invincible, but the kind who showed up when needed, did what they could with what they had, and tried to make things a little bit better. As they docked back at the colony, the gas giant setting behind them in a blaze of blue light, Hana turned to Jiwoo. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" "For being you. For staying with me. For showing me that there's more to life than duty and honor and all the things I was taught to value." She reached out and cupped his face gently with her scaled hand. "When I saw you fight in that arena all those months ago, I wished you were mine. Now I know the truth. You're not mine, and I'm not yours. We belong to each other, which is something far better." Jiwoo leaned into her touch. "Remarkable," he said, echoing her first word about him. "Yes," Hana agreed. "Remarkable. All of this. Us. What we've built. What we'll continue to build." They sealed the ship and headed home to their small apartment in the colony. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new people who needed help, new dangers to face. But tonight, they had each other. Tonight, they could rest and be grateful for the impossible life they had created together. A Valerian warrior and a human merchant who had found in each other everything they had been missing, who had chosen compassion over cruelty, truth over comfort, and love over every logical reason why it shouldn't work. They were exactly where they chose to be, free, together, and fighting not because they had to, but because they wanted to, because some things were worth fighting for. And as they walked through the colony streets, hand in hand under alien stars, both of them knew they had found the most important thing the universe could offer. They had found home.